So the New York Jets went the smart route, vice the sexy route in this year's draft. Not only that, they made the move that I think is going to be a benefit for the New York Jets, not just now, but also throughout the season. You know what? Put it this way: it's going to benefit the Jets short term, in the interim, and of course long term. And I'm excited to talk to you about it. The New York Jets were on the clock, and they made the right call. Let's go.
I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you what a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man. I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you what a loss? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man.
Congratulations, brother.
And here we I don't know why people are upset about it. I don't know why you can be upset about it. You've watched this team over the last 5 years go through a roller coaster of individuals on the offensive line, constantly being shifted around due to injuries. We have not been fortunate in any capacity when it comes to the offensive line. So the New York Jets in the 2024 NFL Draft, they decided to go with none other than Olu Fashanu. And I think I'm saying that wrong. I'm going to make sure I get that right by the time the season gets here. But for now, it's Olu Fashanu. He was the 11th overall pick for the New York Jets. And that's right. I did say the 11th overall pick. I'm obviously wearing the Brickashaw Ferguson jersey. Had to go ahead and do that in homage to the fact that we picked a guy that the comp by some was the Brickashaw Ferguson. And if you go back and you look at a lot of the measurables, you kind of see where it's coming from. But then you kind of look at in terms of the kind of technical skills that he brings to the table from college to the NFL, and they match up very well as what they were in terms of prospects, especially in terms of the Brick, what he was and what Olu is. But listen, I'm excited about it. I know some of you are upset about it, but let's take a minute here and really dissect this before we blow a gasket. The New York Jets didn't just pick Fashanu because that was the move. Okay, we've got confirmed reports that the New York Jets made every attempt to move up into the draft to get one of those top three freaking guys. Heck, I mean, even Aaron Rodgers went out of his way to go ahead and say as much on the Pat McAfee show that they love the three wide receivers. Right? They were in terms of 1, 2, 3 on their board. And starting at the 5th pick of the draft, Joe Douglas was on the phones trying to find a way to randomly and just, aggressively move up and get into one of those picks. But everybody from 5th to 9th didn't want to budge. They wanted to stay where they were at. They knew what they wanted to do. You can't be mad at that. You can't be mad at Joe Douglas for freaking going the only route available to him, was to stick with his big board and go with the best player available in terms of a position of need for the Jets. Yes, Olu Fashanu is a need. It wasn't even in question. A lot of you are saying like, hey, why would you pick somebody at this point that's going to go ahead and be a backup? The New York Jets, compliments of Matt O'Leary, who's already done this homework for y'all. So y'all don't even have to go ahead and look at it yourselves and do the homework. But the New York Jets in the last 5 years have had double-digit rotations on the offensive line with the exception of 1 year. And that 1 year was 9 rotations, 9 different rotations in terms of starters on the offensive line. Double digits in the last freaking 5 years. And I get it. Tyron Smith, I know Tyron Smith is elite. I think he's an all-pro caliber tackle. I mean, he was an all-pro. The thing is, the guy hasn't played a full season since 2015. Morgan Moses, a lot of you will say, well, listen, Morgan Moses is a freaking Iron Man. He plays. Okay, he's 33 years old. Yeah, he was able to get through a torn pectoral last season, but let's be honest. He's 33. He's only gotten older. It gets a little bit harder to keep doing those kind of things as you age. I don't understand even remotely the hate that people have for this pick. You're talking about a GM who understands the value of what the offensive line looks like. In case some of you guys forgot what happened last year, let me just go ahead and show you this real quick. We lost Aaron Rodgers. We lost Aaron Rodgers within 4 snaps of him being a New York Jet. That's what happened last year. 4 snaps. It doesn't matter if we get the weapon and we don't have the quarterback. The move should be protecting your quarterback. And I understand the argument of needing a weapon when it came to Adunze, when it came to Neighbors, when it came to MHJ. I found myself, oddly enough, being on board with that being the route the Jets should go. But when it's all said and done, we got a blue chipper, one of the best freaking tackle options in this entire class. Like, if you don't know the kind of player that Fashanu is, this is a guy that coming in right now from the draft, he's arguably the best of all the offensive linemen when it comes to pass protection. I understand there's some question marks about his ability to operate in the run game, but we all know that he has the athletic profile to be an asset in the run game. You saw him at Penn State being able to get into the second level, utilizing that athleticism to go ahead and get into the second tier in terms of his blocks. So we know he's capable of it. The consistency aspect is what's in question. But what's not in question is this dude is a dog when it comes to protecting the quarterback. A dog. This is a guy who didn't give up a sack in his entire Penn State career. He could have gone into the top 10 last year had he gone in for the draft. Kid chose not to. Do you want to know why? He wanted to pursue a master's degree. Wanted to pursue his education to go ahead and make sure he builds up on that. So he stayed and he played and put up more quality tape that ultimately would have made him a top 10 pick this year. But some people decided to pick Penix, you know what I'm saying, with pick number 8. I digress. So we were able to go ahead and get him with the 11th overall pick. Oh, the 11th overall pick. The New York Jets, if you don't remember, were supposed to pick at pick 10. So after Joe Douglas made the attempt to move up in the draft between picks 5 and pick 9, and couldn't do so because in order for him to trade up everybody, you kind of need somebody else to want to do it. Takes 2 to tango, or in this situation, takes 2 to trade up. Kind of need that for it to work. It didn't work because he didn't have a willing partner. However, Joe Douglas did not deter him from being able to go ahead and trade back to still get his man. Now, here's the crazy thing. He traded back from pick 10 to pick 11, and in doing so was able to acquire a 4th and a 5th by trading the 10th overall pick and the pick the New York Jets got for Zach Wilson. So one of the picks we got for Zach Wilson, somehow, some way, Joe Douglas turned Zach Wilson, which, by the way, Dano, that was a really, really good point you brought out last night on our live draft. When you put it in that perspective, it just made it that much more of a win, in my opinion. But Joe Douglas traded Zach Wilson and the 10th overall pick to go back to pick 11 and acquire a 4th and a 5th. That's in essence what the math was for Joe Douglas to go ahead and trade back and still get Olu Fashanu. In every capacity, to me, this was a win. I think Joe Douglas, again, another masterclass in the draft. When you couldn't get the weapon that you wanted to get, you didn't reach. And again, even myself was on board with reaching for a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not an NFL GM for a reason. He chose not to do that. Instead, he chose to go the offensive tackle route, which in essence makes the most sense because ultimately keeping Aaron Rodgers upright is going to be the only way we get to the promised land. And as much as we want to tell ourselves that we didn't need an offensive tackle, I guarantee you Fashanu was going to play between 5 and 6 games this season. You can clip this if you want to. The fact of the matter is Tyron Smith, as elite as he is averaging about 8 games a season in the last 10 years. This is a guy that I just stated hasn't completed a full season since 2015. I'm going to estimate that Fashanu gets at least 6 to 7 games in this year. It's going to happen. And those 6 to 7 games are going to come at a time when the New York Jets are making a push towards winning the AFC East. And then, and I think only then, will you guys really see the value of having made this pick. Until then, you'll be upset because we didn't go the Brock Bowers route or we didn't reach for a potential wide receiver. But in every capacity, this was an intelligent move. The New York Jets made the smart move, vice the sexy one, right? The sexy pick would have been Brock Bowers. The sexy pick would have been to go for an exciting wide receiver like BTJ. We'd be talking about it right now as if like it was a win move if they reached for a wide receiver like BTJ. But in all actuality, it's only the first round. By acquiring more assets, Joe Douglas has put himself in the wonderful position to actually trade up in the draft. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I believe there's some potential candidates that would be extremely ideal for a situation like this. Corley specifically comes to mind because of his yak ability. I think if we could go ahead and scoop up a guy like that in the third or fourth round, I'm a big fan of Malik Washington. The fact is this: there's still weapons to be had because this was one of the deepest wide receiver classes we've seen in a very long time. An estimated 13 to 15 prospects had first round grades. 7 went in the first round. That means there's another 7 to 8 individuals that are out there that have first round grades. We now have the assets to go ahead and move up and potentially grab one of these guys. There's no way freaking we're going to go ahead. I think we have 7 more draft picks. I don't see 8 potential rookies being on the roster by season's end. I think they're going to go ahead and package some of those picks and move up, hopefully in the second, realistically, probably into the third. And we're going to go ahead and get a wide receiver. Joe Douglas has had an incredible offseason. I think ultimately when you look at what this team is looking like, it's being built the right way. And I think we're not valuing enough the impact of having Olu Fashanu sitting behind a guy like Tyron Smith and learning from a technician such as him how to be an all-around dog, vice just an elite guy in the passing game. I'm excited for this. If you weren't a fan of the pick, man, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to sell it to you, but you've made the decision. You're going to choose to be upset about it. But the New York Jets in the last 5 years have had to rotate offensive linemen at a cyclic rate. Double digits every year, with the exception of one. And even that 1 year, it was 9 rotations. We're going to see this kid play this year. And when he go ahead and picks up an edge rusher trying to go ahead and get to our quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and the one time he picks up the freaking, rushing pass rusher and gives Aaron Rodgers just the amount of time he needs to hit Garrett Wilson on a slant route to go ahead and take it to the house to win a game, I think then you will start appreciating a guy like that. Yeah, I get it. It's not the flashy, sexy pick, but it was the smart pick, and I'm all for it. I'm giving this an A. I think what Joe Douglas was able to do, now it would have been a B, but the ability for him to get the amount of assets he got by going back one pick, to me, elevates this to an A move. This was an A move because you're going to need Olu Fashanu. And no matter what we try to debate it or try to argue it, we're going to see it eventually. Once the season gets here, we'll see that this was all just a moot point in arguing it. And I believe they're going to go ahead and find some assets in terms of wide receiver, whether it's in the free agency or whether it's in the draft. That's going to go ahead and appease the concerns of weapons. And when it comes to the weapons argument, that's a whole other video for a different day. But y'all also need to remember, we really don't know what we have in terms of weapons on the Jets offense. We know Garrett Wilson and we know Breece Hall are considered to be QB proof because they can still produce with no QB play, which we've seen them do over the last couple of years. We know Allen Lazard, as when Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball, is a very good wide receiver 3. He averages 550 plus yards, 5 touchdowns, and about 40 receptions as a wide receiver 3 when Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball. Those are really good numbers for a wide receiver 3. Mike Williams is Mike Williams is the standard when it comes to contested catch rate in the NFL. And you're going to say, oh, well, he's always injury prone. But that's not true. That's simply not true. He's not injury prone. I think people mistake injury prone for being, you'll see him on the injury report because he gets banged up. The guy sacrifices his body a lot of times to go ahead and make the big plays and make the catch. So he gets banged up. But the guy always plays. Last season was more of an anomaly for him, vice his reality. But he tore his ACL. Like, that happens. It's football. Breece Hall tore his ACL in year 1. Is he injury prone? Ultimately, you got a dog in Mike Williams. You got a dog in Garrett Wilson. Allen Lazard has proven to be a consistent wide receiver 3. And we haven't had a chance to see what Gibson can do, what Brownlee can do. And we've seen Conklin put up top 10 numbers at tight end with no quarterback. What can he do with freaking Aaron Rodgers? I'm not saying we don't need a wide receiver. I understand the need for that. All I'm saying is in terms of the Jets' first round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, Olu Fashanu was a money move in every aspect of the term, whether it's short term, intermediate term, long term. It was a money move. It was the right move. As Jets fans, we need to go ahead and get on board. And if you're not a believer in Fashanu, I urge you to go ahead and watch the Brickashaw Ferguson and watch some of the profile prospect comments on the Brickashaw Ferguson and on Fashanu. And I just want to know if you feel the same way when you kind of see those two things. Now, I'm not saying he's gonna be D-Brick. I mean, again, you don't really know what somebody's heart and somebody's brain has, to be able to be a guy like that. I don't think even D-Brick thought he was gonna be D-Brick until he became D-Brick. But it's comforting. And for those that keep saying that Olu Fashanu and Becton are the same guys, no, it couldn't be further from the truth. Olu Fashanu has a very, very high floor. Becton was drafted on his ability to have a very, very high ceiling, but he was coming in with a lot of question marks, whether it was his weight, whether it was his endurance, whether it was his technique. A lot of question marks. But the ceiling was high. You can go ahead and clean him up. Fashanu was coming into the league right now as a polished pass protector that can get better in the run game. Big difference. Big difference. I'm giving it an A. I love it. I'm excited to go ahead and watch the rest of the NFL draft. I had to go ahead and get in front of the camera and talk about Olu Fashanu because it is exciting that he's a New York Jet. And if you're really a New York Jets fan, you should be excited about it too. So, as always, till next time, go Jets.
Congratulations, brother.